Welcome to the 2020 New Testament Challenge. Today we're in 2 Corinthians chapter 8. In the Old Testament, God said this about himself. He said he was gracious and compassionate, slow to anger, and abounding in love. Throughout the Old Testament, that description of God was used time and time again. Jesus said, if you've seen me, you've seen the Father. What was Jesus like? He was gracious and compassionate, slow to anger, and abounding in love. Then, throughout the scriptures, we are told to be just like God. Be perfect, therefore, just as your Father in heaven is perfect, is what Jesus said in the Sermon on the Mount. So, when we are loving and forgiving, when we are compassionate, gracious, generous, we are most like God at those moments. But when we are hateful, vindictive, when we are uncaring, stingy, or self-centered, we are the least like God at those moments. God is a giver. He is always giving grace and mercy. In fact, God blesses the unrighteous and the righteous. What did Jesus say in the Sermon on the Mount? That God sends his sun to shine upon the evil and the good. He sends rain upon the righteous and the unrighteous. And we need to be just like God. Be perfect, therefore, just as your Father in heaven is perfect, is what Jesus said. Paul encourages the church to be generous, just like God is generous. Listen to what he says beginning in verse 1 of chapter 8. And now, brothers, I want you to know about the grace that God has given the Macedonian churches. Out of the most severe trial, their overflowing joy and their extreme poverty welled up in rich generosity. For I testify that they gave as much as they were able, and even beyond their ability, entirely on their own. They urged us, they pleaded with us for the privilege of sharing in this service to the saints. And they did not do as we expected, but they gave themselves first to the Lord and then to us in keeping with God's will. The Macedonian churches were being just like God in those moments. Through severe trial, what happened? They had overwhelming joy. Through extreme poverty, then they became rich in their generosity. They looked at their ability, but then they even went beyond their ability in their giving. Entirely on their own, it said, they pleaded for the privilege to give. That sounds just like God, doesn't it? Well, they gave themselves first to God. What did that mean? It means that they saw God as their source. They saw God as their provider. They saw God as their sustainer. And therefore, everything depended upon God providing for them. They just simply wanted to be a conduit to bless others. In other words, they wanted to be a funnel that God could use to bless others through. What did they understand? They understood that the more you give, then the more you receive. That with the measure you use, it will be measured back to you. They understood that it is more blessed to give than to receive. They also understood that they were managers and not owners. When you're an owner and you feel as though you're going to lose something, what do you usually do? You hold on to it more tightly. But when you're a manager, when you're a steward, and you understand that everything you have belongs to God, then you're a giver. And when your hands are open, you can receive more. When your hands are closed, you can receive less. Those churches understood that. You know what I have found as well? That the most joyous people are givers, and the most sad people are those that are selfish. If we want to be joyful, we need to be givers as well. Excel in the grace of giving is what Paul told those churches. That's a message to you and to me as well. We also need to excel in the grace of giving because God has more in store than we could ever give out. Thank you for joining the 2020 New Testament Challenge.